Good morning. Hi, thanks for coming. My name is Margaret Carson. I'm a literary translator from Spanish, and I'm also the incoming co-chair of the PEN Translation Committee, along with Alex Zucker, who's sitting in the front row. And I was wondering, those of you in the audience who are translators, could you raise your hands? Okay, great, excellent, hi. And those of you who are publishers, who would be looking for translators, who are you? Are you in the audience? Okay, great, hi. Hey. So hopefully we can have a little dialogue today about this sort of matchmaking. But first I wanted to talk a little bit about the PEN Translation Committee. We're part of PEN, the worldwide organization for writers, essayists, playwrights, and translators. And we work to foster a wider understanding on the Translation Committee, a wider understanding of what literary translation is. And we have many resources. Here's the PEN America website. We have many resources here for translators. Go to this page. Oops. Open. Which we are in the process of hopefully updating very soon. So some of our resources, I'm going to talk about some of our resources here today. Okay, so the question here is how to find the right translator. And this is a very important question. You have a book that you want to come out in English. It's a very important project for you, and you want the best translator that you can possibly get. So how do you start? What are strategies? What are techniques? I'm essentially saying that the translator is rewriting the book in English, which is not a trivial matter. It's not a simple thing. It's basically taking the book apart, taking all the pieces apart, and then putting them back together in English in a way that will read as a literary text, just as it had read in the original language. It's very time-intensive and meticulous work. And I would argue that the success of the book really depends on the caliber of the translator that you hire. And that it's very important that you establish a good working relationship with that translator, that you don't regard it as work that ends once the manuscript has been delivered. I think it's work that continues past that. The translator has to have a good relationship with the editor, with the publisher. The translator can be called upon to help with the publicity of the book. The translator knows more about the book than anyone else. So the translator is an essential player in the successful marketing of the book and the successful sales of the book. Okay, so just let's go back a step and say you've invested in a book, you have the foreign rights, you want it to come out in English, but the only thing you're missing is a translator. So what do you do first? So I want to go over some tried and true methods, and then maybe ask you also, if you've looked for translators, what you've done. But I can tell you from my personal experience, and I've worked on a number of translation projects, that most of my work has come through personal referrals. In other words, better known translators who are called to do a job and who can't take it on for whatever reason will give my name to that publisher. And then I will be called for that project. And I think from the publisher's standpoint, this might be the best way because you have someone in between who is vouching for the person who is being recommended. And hopefully that's sort of a gateway, sort of a filter for you in locating a translator if you have no idea who to call on. I also think that many projects these days are brought to publishers by the translators themselves. In fact, many small independent presses solicit proposals and ideas from translators And in this respect, translators take on the function of agents, almost. They're sort of advocating for the author and the work that they would like translated. And I think this is, if you like the sample, if you like the proposal, the report on the book itself, and you think it's a book you'd be interested in, then I would actually think very hard about just hiring that translator who brought the project to you. This is not always the case, but I think this should be done. The translator who proposes a book to a publisher and who's shown that they can actually translate, has a sample of high quality, just go for it. Just hire that person to do the entire job. Okay, work out the details, work out the agreement. Okay, that might be the best person. I'd also recommend that you go through your personal network. As publishers, you have colleagues in your company, in the business. Here today, for example, there are many publishing people walking around. You can ask them for ideas. Do they know of a translator? And it doesn't have to be a translator from the language that the book needs to be translated from. It can be any translator, because translators have our own networks. And we know, even though I translate from Spanish, but I know many translators who translate from other language, and I know that they're good translators, and I can possibly give you a referral that way. Another possibility is if you have a reader's report on the book. The person who did the reader's report is obviously someone who is able to read in the original language. That person might be a translator or might know of a translator who can translate the book. Okay, now here are some other ideas about how to do the matchup between the book and the translator. And this, I'm going to show you some websites. Here on the PEN.org website, we have, here it's listed a directory of working translators. And many of our members have, here they are. Okay, they're listed alphabetically, and they're also listed by language. So, whoops. If you're looking for a specific language and you find it in the right-hand column, you can click on that translator and see how it reads. See what the translator is presenting. Alex, can I click on you? Okay. So I'm gonna click on Alex Zucker. He's an excellent translator from the Czech. Oops. Okay. And so this is what you find. Different translators will have set it up differently. Alex, you need to provide a little bit of a bio blurb here about yourself. Sorry. Great picture. Okay. Yes, look, it says up here you have the contact information and homepage and Tumblr. Okay, and if you were a Twitter account, could go here. Oh, yes. OK, great. You have all of the icons. OK, great. Okay, excellent. And then you have Alex's books, and he's linking to, as a link. If you want to look at them, check them out, buy them. OK, thank you, Alex. OK, so that's one example. And then, as you saw, now if you want to find this directory, you can just Google PEN translator directory, and it will come up. Okay, you'll link directly. You just have to Google it. Okay, and another directory that a long-standing directory, but that's now in a bit of a flux, is the American Literary Translators Association, known as ALTA. Has a directory of their translators. There's somewhat of an overlap between PEN and ALTA, but not entirely. And that Sean, do you want to say something about that directory? It's somewhat similar, but it's going to be reborn in maybe what? Yes.
Over the next year, yeah. But then the other Alta thing that you can do is to come to the conference, in which you'll have 300 translators from various languages just milling about, and that's how I found 3 of my projects have come directly from the conference, just being approached by editors there.
Oh, great! That's a good idea. And okay, so the Alta conference this year is going to be in
lovely Milwaukee, but it's always in October or November, and the site changes. It tries to go back and forth between the coast and then in the Midwest.
Okay, thank you. And so if you just Google American Literary Translators Association, you'll get their webpage, and there's no doubt the conference information is there.
LiteraryTranslators.org is the official website.
LiteraryTranslators.org.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so that's another directory. You can just look. In this way, you're looking for the translator yourself, and you're deciding whether or not to contact the translator. The contact information is there. The other way that I want to propose is, and this involves going to sites that specialize in literary translation, sites that are edited and curated, and sort of in a literary way, which might give you sort of an assurance that the work that's there, that the translator who is there has a certain level of accomplishment. And one of the biggest sites that I would recommend is called Words Without Borders. And they have a monthly issue with a different theme. And as you see, this is their 10th anniversary year. They've been coming out monthly. They have a huge archive of translated works and translators. And you see this page, this is called the Find page. And if you go over here to the filter and click on it, you see that all of these many languages pop up. And then you can click on any language. What language are you interested in? Somebody? And Japanese. Okay. So there you have 46 articles translated from Japanese. That's a pretty good number. And there you have the author, and then there is the translator. Okay, so if we click here, and let's see. Okay, there's the piece in Japanese, in English translation. You can read it and see how judge its quality. And then here at the bottom, there's a little bio for the translator. Now, it doesn't have the contact information, but there may be some information about this translator that would give you a good place where to find him or her. In other words, if they're teaching at a university, they would have a university email. You could Google them, use different ways of finding people that it's so easy these days with Google. Okay, so this is Words Without Borders. And the other site, this is a much newer site. It's called Asymptote. And I think they're coming out quarterly. And okay, so there's a whole huge number of articles that have already been published. Now here, if you look at the upper right-hand side, languages, and again, you have this menu of languages. So if you're looking for, what's another language that we, Romanian. Okay, let's see. And there you go, and I see Sean Cotter's name is there, and he's sitting right here. So if you're interested in finding a Romanian translator, there you go. Okay, along with others, and whoops. And as I just said, if you went to the bio, if you clicked on the bio for Sean, maybe there would be information. I know that, Sean, you teach at University of Texas in Dallas. Is that okay? So for that sort of that kind of clue, that would help you find that translator. Okay. All right. So I think that's about all of the techniques and strategies that I was able to think of for this presentation. There are, however, evolving models of finding translators, and I see has just arrived in the audience. Ross Ufberg, who is a publisher, editor, and translator himself from Polish, is that? Yes. And he has come up with a new concept of matching publishers and translators. So, Ross, did you want to talk about it and grab the mic and tell people? And
sure. Hi. So this idea is for now called.
Can you hear him?
It's called Lit Finder, and it's a way. The website is not set up yet, but it's a way essentially for translators to list themselves. So it would be a directory of translators, but also a directory of things they're working on. So if you're a publisher, I can speak from sort of both sides. If you're a publisher and you've heard about an author, but you don't know if anybody's been working on this author, you don't know if there's a sample out there, you can go onto this page, Lit Finder, and you can search for, John Van Doren, right? And he's a Romanian writer. Very Romanian last name, John Van Doren. And you can find him and you see, you might be able to see a little biographic entry about him, but also you see, oh, I know that actually it says that Sean Cotter is working on him. And so maybe there'll be a way to get in touch with Sean Cotter, with the translator, whether it's directly or whether it's through the host of the website. And you can say, hey, I see you're working on this short story. Could you send it to me? I'm interested in this author. And also, it's a way for translators to upload who they're working on. And it's also a way to sort of rescue all these translations that people have done and maybe never found a publisher for, or that they've done and now are out of print. So you'll have a database that works from both sides, for translators to search for publishers and publishers to search for translators. It's sort of a less sexy version of what's it, casual... what's it called on Craigslist? Missed encounters, or something like that. So you can match. What is it? It's definitely more sexy than that. So, but the idea is for it to work, it has to be sort of comprehensive. And so there are some organizations like PEN and ALTA, American Literary Translation Association, or is it the A? I confuse the A's, but. So PEN America, ALTA, and so if they could just get their members involved, and then other translators will hear about it, if we could make it comprehensive, then it could really be a helpful tool for encouraging the publication of literature and translation.
Okay, thank you. So I think we've covered pretty much, unless... but I'd like to ask you if you have any questions or if there are other suggestions among the translators in the audience. Yes, sir.
You've been talking about translating from a foreign language into English.
Yes.
If you're looking for the opposite, English into another language, does everything the same apply? Or is there anything different you should look at?
Sure. Everything I've said is pretty much assuming that you want the translation from another language into English. Any ideas, translators, where to, yeah, okay.
I would say you could still use the same resources, and oftentimes, because a lot of translators working into some other language from some other language into English, they'll have a network of fellow translators going the opposite direction. At least speaking for myself, like I have a network of people that I lean on for suggestions, recommendations, and because they go in the other direction, so that you could use that same network of personally vetted recommendations. So you could use these same, I'm not guaranteeing that every translator working into English can point you to a personal connection who goes the other direction, but it's a good place to start.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Any other questions or comments, ideas, strategies? Yes.
How about resources for translating other subjects, like actually subject areas rather than literary translation?
Yeah.
But, so it seems to me that people who have to translate these other subject areas have to be maybe perhaps not equally skilled as literarily, but pretty damn skilled that way too.
Yes, yeah, they have to be an expert in the area. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be the ideal, but sometimes it's not always possible.
Do you have any subject area in mind?
Well, I'll tell you right now. I am publishing a book that the author found. It's a book about music, and the author found a translator, and the translator is supposedly the best translator for music from Polish to English in Poland. But he is a native speaker of English. But I have to say, I'm editing this translation now, and it's really terrible. It's really very, very, very stilted. And I'm very upset because I'm, thinking that once I get the book edited, it's not going to sell at all because it's so poorly written. In English. In Polish, it's probably much better, I hope.
Yeah, see, this is a really crucial decision that has to be made, and sometimes the author is not the best person to do that. Alex, did you want to say something to that point?
Just that a lot of literary translators translate things other than fiction. A lot of us have other interests besides literature. So I wouldn't pen, for instance, the directory of translators. You don't have to just translate a novel or a work of poetry or a play to be a member of PEN. You could have translated any kind of book at all. So that same directory could be just as useful to find. If you look at a person's background, what they studied in school, it's always worth asking what other interests they have. People work in a lot of different areas, and especially if they don't have a job teaching in a particular area, they're going to be doing other kinds of translations to make a living anyway, and usually there ends up being some sort of specialization.